Good morning, everyone. In this video, we will discuss to you the topic of internal and external national security threats. First and foremost, what exactly is national security threats?
Anything that threatens the physical well-being of the population or jeopardizes the stability of a nation's economy or institutions is considered a national security threat.
There are two different types of threats to national security, the internal threats and external threats. Let's go first to internal threat, its definition and examples. So, internal threat. According to Wikipedia, threats to internal security may be directed at either the state's citizens or the organs and infrastructure of the state itself, and may range from petty crime, serious organized crime, political or industrial unrest, or even domestic terrorism. So here are some examples of internal threats in the Philippines. First, the law and order and administration of justice. Second, the internal armed conflicts. Third, the terrorism and transnational crimes. And then lastly, the economic and social threats.
Law and order and administration of justice.
The Philippines has grappled for years with a serious peace and order problem. The national crime rate, considered as one of the highest in Southeast and East Asia, has posed a significant deterrent to investments as well as constrained the country's overall development potential. While the number of reported crimes has been rising, the ability of the police to solve crime has decreased. The twin scourge of corruption and patronage, politics plaguing law enforcement institutions and government sector as a whole has made it extremely hard, if not impossible, to bring the crime rate down. Clearly, ensuring public security and enforcing the rule of law is one of the key governance challenges confronting the Philippine government. The Philippines' growing illegal drugs problem in particular needs a determined and proactive solution. Successive researches and pertinent crime statistics in the Philippines show a strong and direct correlation between crimes, especially serious or violent ones, and drug abuse. Any serious campaign to fight crime should therefore also involve a resolute crusade to stamp out drug abuse, and this is a tough challenge.
Internal armed conflicts.
The communist rebellion being waged by the Communist Party of the Philippines and its armed wing, the New People's Army or NPA, continues to pose serious peace and order problems in the country. The insurgency is one of the Asia's longest-running conflicts and has claimed an estimated 30,000 lives since the 1960s. There are persistent challenges to the three-decade-old peace negotiations with the communists, but the government will keep forging on until both parties agree to end the fighting. The Muslim separatist struggle being waged by non-state armed groups and extremist movements remains a major source of instability in resource-rich but impoverished parts of southern Philippines or Mindanao. The on-and-off peace process with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front or MILF, the largest and most organized of the myriad radical groups operating in Mindanao, made a promising breakthrough when finally a peace deal was signed in March 2014. A draft Bangsamoro Basic Law or BBL, which forms the backbone of the 2014 Peace Accord, is pending approval by Philippine Congress. In line with that, the government since the 1990s has taken steps to decentralize power aimed at addressing the root causes of internal conflicts, namely poverty and social injustice, widespread economic inequity, poor governance, abuse and control of political power, and marginalization of cultural communities, which includes land security, natural resources, identity, and human rights.
Terrorism and transnational crimes.
International terrorism and transnational crime pose a direct threat to the security of individual countries and to international peace and prosperity. These twin problems are a persistent global threat that know no borders, nationality or religion, and operate outside the rule of law. Transnational terrorists and crime syndicates are usually well organized internationally and domestically. They are well resourced, have access to the latest technologies and skills, and will use unlimited or any form of violence to achieve their goals and objectives. The Philippines faces continuing threats from terrorism, both of foreign and domestic origin. The Abu Sayyaf Group or ASG remains as the foremost terror group actively inflicting severe social, political, and economic disruptions. The ASG is an extremist organization known for its bandit-like tactics and notorious for beheadings and kidnap for ransom activities in Mindanao. In addition to the ASG, other local terrorist groups such as the Ansar al-Khilafah Philippines or AKP, Mauti Group, Bangsamoro Freedom Fighters or BIFF, and Daesh-inspired entities have the potential to inflict various forms of violent attacks not only in Mindanao but also in any part of the Philippines. Meanwhile, the problem of transnational crimes has been more pressing. Given its archipelagic attributes, the Philippines' borders are porous and vulnerable to the activities of international crime syndicates. These illegal transborder activities include drug trafficking, human trafficking of children, women, illegal migrants and labor, illegal fishing or poaching, arms smuggling, and money laundering. The asymmetric nature of terrorism and transnational crime requires the national government to continuously review and update current strategies, and to develop an integrated approach involving concerned law enforcement agencies of the government. The Philippines must strengthen and enhance already existing cooperation with international partners while seeking to develop new ones in this regard.
Economic and social threats.
Poverty remains pervasive and is not expected to change significantly in the near future. As the population continues to grow, more Filipinos are expected to join the ranks of the poor so long as the poverty rate remains largely unchanged. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA showed that poverty incidence among Filipinos in 2015 remains unacceptably high at 21.6%. Different levels of economic and social development, along with demographic pressures, cause hunger and malnutrition, homelessness, and larger migrations of people from rural to urban areas. Demographic migrations, in addition to social problems and the growth of crime, can lead to increased instability and insecurity. Infectious diseases are also on the rise, particularly human immunodeficiency virus or HIV and acquired immune deficiency syndrome or AIDS. Many of the HIV or AIDS cases were reported among overseas Filipino workers and among workers engaged in business process outsourcing.
Next is external threat. These are actions and positions against our national security, which is a state or condition where our most cherished values and beliefs, our democratic way of life, our institutions of governance and our unity, welfare and well-being as a national and people are permanently protected and continuously enhanced. What are the external threats in the Philippines? First is the overlapping territorial claims and other maritime concerns. Second is the global and regional geopolitical issues. Third is the global uncertainties and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
Overlapping territorial claims and maritime domain issues.
Overlapping territorial claims and maritime domain issues. The country needs to address the disputes concerning maritime boundaries as they affect a complex range of national security concerns as well as threaten regional peace and stability. The Philippines must ensure good order within its sea boundaries and develop appropriate maritime domain awareness and response force capability to address the presence of hostile forces at sea, pirates, terrorists, traffickers, illegal fishers, and other environmental transgressors. The Philippines must also protect the nation's maritime interest in the Benham Rice and Batanes Islands in the north and the Zamba Salta and Bongao Islands in the southern Philippines. The dispute over the West Philippine Sea remains to be the foremost security challenge to the Philippines' sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Global and regional geopolitical issues.
In addition to the WPS or the West Philippine Sea issue, there are other inter- and intrastate flashpoints of immediate concern to the Philippines. These include the intensifying conflicts in the Middle East and Africa, or MENA region, persisting tension in the Korean Peninsula, unresolved territorial disputes in Northeast and Southeast Asia, unsettled Sabah issue, China-Taiwan conflict, and other power rivalries where the hegemony of the United States is contested and threatened. United States. A continuing U.S. security presence in the Asia-Pacific is a stabilizing force, particularly with the growing complexity of security challenges that confront the region. The U.S. remains as the sole defense treaty ally of the Philippines. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the United States has been strengthened under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA of 2015, granting the U.S. increased military presence in the country for humanitarian and maritime security operations. China. The rise of China generates policy concerns not only among developed countries such as the U.S., Japan, and Korea, but also among the ASEAN nations due to socio-cultural interactions, significant trade and investments, as well as territorial claims in the WPS or the West Philippines. China's more active presence in the WPS or West Philippine Sea is motivated by growing need for food sources, increasing demand for energy resources, and renewed stirrings of nationalism. There are existing border disputes among the member states of ASEAN, but the organization has consistently upheld the principles of consultation and consensus as its norm in resolving interstate misunderstanding and conflicts. ASEAN is building a political security community, an economic community, and a social-cultural community to promote greater regional integration and to strengthen ASEAN's centrality in the context of the wider Asia-Pacific region. The ASEAN as a regional bloc had pursued greater regional cooperation on common problems such as combating piracy, smuggling, human trafficking, terrorism, and other transnational crimes. ASEAN's centrality is important as it will allow the region to manage the impacts of geopolitical rivalries among the great powers. Japan's pacifist constitution is a product of its experience in World War II, as well as the continuing security umbrella the U.S. has been providing it. However, new security challenges in the region, including territorial disputes in Senkaku Islands, provide a strong incentive for Japan to upgrade its defensive capabilities as well as seek closer security relations with other regional states. Japan has entered into a strengthened strategic partnership with the Philippines aimed at boosting political, security, and defense ties and cooperation between the two countries. Other extra-regional powers such as South Korea, Australia, Russia, and India as members of the East Asia Summit are also crucial in contributing to the peace, stability, and prosperity of the East Asian region. Being bound to the Philippines and ASEAN, these countries, through the East Asia Summit, aim to promote community building in the region, consistent with and to reinforce the realization of the ASEAN community, and will form an integral part of the evolving regional security architecture. The Philippines will need to closely work with these powers bilaterally and through the East Asia Summit on vital economic and security issues.
Global uncertainties and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
Increased global economic uncertainties. The slowdown in major economies of the world, such as the US, China, and the European Union, will have an impact in virtually every country in the world, including the Philippines. Economic downturns abroad could temper the demand for Philippine experts, slow down foreign investments, and hurt the overall business climate in the country. The Philippines has so far remained resilient to these challenges, even managing to remain as one of the fastest growing economies in Asia over the past several years. Much of this was due to the country's sound and stable economic fundamentals as well as the overall fiscal health of the national economy. The government must stay vigilant and proactive in the face of a volatile global economy. Global security issues and the welfare of OFWs. Conflicts abroad and other emerging global security threats pose a direct danger to overseas Filipino workers who contribute significantly to the national economy, accounting for most of the country's net factor income from abroad or NFIA through the remittances. The government must exert continuing effort to promote and protect the rights and welfare of our OFWs, particularly victims of illegal recruitment, human trafficking, ill treatment, and unfair labor practices, among others.
Proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
Rapid technological advancements and greater access to scientific knowledge are changing the face of the world in unimagined ways. Scientific and technological breakthroughs are creating wealth and progress everywhere, but are also spawning new and increasingly dangerous triggers for global insecurity. Among the most serious of these threats is the proliferation of weapons and mass destructions, or WMDs, which has come to occupy center stage in international politics. WMDs are classified into three major types: nuclear weapons, chemical warfare agents, and biological warfare agents. Aside from the dangers posed by existing stockpiles of WMD, there are growing concerns that WMDs and related technologies could spread to more states and non-state terrorist networks. The Philippines will continue to strongly support the global call for greater international collaboration to control the proliferation and use of WMDs.
Here are some video clips of internal threats to national security in the Philippines.
Nakita ko po si Papa, may hawak-hawak po na ID, tapos pinapakita niya po dun sa may pulis. Tapos habang nakatutok sa ulo niya yung baril.
Sir, kung may kasalanan man po ako o wala, maawa naman po kayo. Huwag niyo na lang po akong patayin kung gusto niyo. Ikulong niyo na lang po ako. Kasi kawawa yung mga anak ko.
Naisip ko po, sabi ko, sa dami-dami po ng tao dyan sa labas po, bakit pa yung papa ko pa yung pinili? Saglit-saglit lang po, tapos pinutukan na po siya.
Jennifer was only 11 years old when she saw her father being killed during an anti-drug operation by the police. Since 2016, thousands of Filipinos have been killed in President Rodrigo Duterte's so-called war on drugs. Many of these victims leave behind families with children. We interviewed dozens of children and parents for this report to find out how the so-called war on drugs is destroying lives in the Philippines. In the absence of adequate government support for these families, members of civil society have stepped up to care for them. One of them is Father Mike Sandaga, a Catholic priest who runs project support for orphans and widows in Payatas, a slum community in Quezon City where residents have been targeted and killed in the drug war.
We have established a sewing center for the left-behind families, especially the mothers who cannot find work.
We started as a simple gathering of families just to voice their sentiments, to share their heartaches, and then we support them through giving of rice and some foods for the family, because the one who was killed was the breadwinner of the family.
Ang hirap po, kasi hindi mo alam kung paano ka magsimula, kung paano mo bubuhayin yung mga anak mo, at saka kung paano mo sila mapag-aral, at saka sa pang-araw-araw na baon nila, at saka sa pagkain. At saka yung nawalan din kami ng tubig dahil naputulan kami, tapos sa kuryente. Marami.
Opo, natagil po ako sa pag-aaral dahil po wala na pong sumusuporta sa akin. Simula po nung namatay yung tatay ko. Yun nga po, trabaho ko sa barangay garbage collector po. Yung bali po, yung sinasahod ko po na yun po yung pinagkakasya ko sa amin magkakapatid para lang po makakain kami sa 3 beses sa isang araw. Natutulog po kami sa may marketplace, sa may mga gilid lang po ng stall.
Police and police-backed vigilantes are responsible for these drug war killings. The government should provide specific support for these children, including redress, counseling, and other assistance to help them deal with the trauma of losing their loved ones.
Yung po na trauma po ako. Kasi po, yung simula po na namatay po si Papa, parang ayoko na po, hindi na po ako makain. Minsan po nagdo-drawing po ako, tapos minsan naman po nagsusulat ako ng kwento. Minsan po nagdo-drawing po ako ng pamilya po, tapos po hindi ko po mabuo-buo. Hindi ko po siya magawa. Sa isip ko po siguro po kasi po, parang pong may nawawala sa drawing. Parang may kulang.
The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao is an area on the island of Mindanao and the Sulu Archipelago in the southern Philippines. It is affected for decades by armed conflict. The main rebel group, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, has been fighting for the self-determination of the Bangsamoro Muslims for a very long time. So after 20 years of negotiations, finally the recent peace talks resulted in this new territory with enhanced powers. The Moro Islamic Liberation Front, the MILF, they are now in charge of running an interim government. The Bangsamoro itself is something like a construct. It is basically an expression for 13 ethno-linguistic groups in the southern Philippines. They have in common that they're Islamized, but their difference between them, even in terms of dialect, in terms of culture, and every region is dominated by families. And some of these families have amassed a lot of power and wealth, and they're maybe the kingpins. And the MILF needs to take their interests into account somehow and work with them or find somehow a modus vivendi to coexist. Because the big question will be, how will the clans prepare for the elections? What will be their positions, their attitudes? How will their role be accommodated in this emerging peace framework? And I think that makes this time right now very exciting, but I think everybody agrees that the chance to find a compromise is now, and there's a lot at stake. So people give also their trust into the momentum of the peace process, hoping that the transitional authority will consider everybody's position in the peace process in order to ensure that everybody is on board and no one is left behind.
Kulang jud ko lack information jud ko. Then educational po how to use condom. Mao jud na siya. Number 1 nako nga matubag kung nganong naing-ani ko na HIV positive.
I was diagnosed when I was 19 years old. I'm so sad about myself that I was not informed in my early age, especially when I was in high school, about HIV.
LGBT activists and men who have sex with men told Human Rights Watch of their embarrassing experience while trying to buy condoms from pharmacies such as this one behind me.
Hadlok sa imong kuan,
kabubuton kay unsa ang matreat nimo, unsa ang reaction sa unsa ang reaction sa pharmacist.
If magpalit kag kondom kanang kataw-an ka, unsa man nimo nganong maggamit man kag kondom hinana.
People infected with HIV are getting younger and younger. So we know for a fact that sex education or HIV education per se should be taught in the school.
This would mean that young people are having sex, and that's really a big no-no in our society. How can you jump into teaching about STIs, sexuality transmitted diseases, if in the first place you don't talk about sex?
Video clips of external threats to national security.
Pilipinas pa rin talaga ang nagmamay-ari ng West Philippine Sea. Tingnan natin ito. Ito ay mapanggawa ni Jesuit Pedro Murillo Velarde noong 1734. Makikita natin dito na may pangalan na ang Scarborough Shoal na Panakot at ang Spratly Island naman ay may pangalan na Los Bajos de Paragua. Ngayon, sa lahat ng mga ancient maps ng China mula Tang Dynasty hanggang Qing Dynasty, hindi kasali sa kanilang mapa ang mga reefs at shoals sa West Philippine Sea. Noong 1947 lang nila nilathala ang kanilang mapa na mayroong 9-dash line na, kung saan kasali na ang kabuuan ng West Philippine Sea. Ang malala pa nito ay sila lang ang naglathala nito nang hindi man lang sumasangguni sa international law of the sea at sa mga karatig bansa na nagmamay-ari sa naturang lugar. Ito ay labag sa batas na nakapaloob sa UNCLOS. Ngayon, posible ba na humantong ang hidwaang ito sa digmaan kapag naglagay ng Navy ships ang Pilipinas sa West Philippine Sea? Of course, hindi. Alam ng China na may Mutual Defense Treaty ang Pilipinas at USA kung saan obligado ang dalawang bansa na tumulong sa isa't isa sakali mang may banta sa seguridad mula sa ibang bansa. Pangalawa, ito ay labag sa international law. Pinagbabawalan na ang mga bansa na gumamit ng dahas o gyera laban sa ibang bansa. At higit sa lahat, hindi interesado ang China sa gyera. Klaro yan. Mas agresibong ipinagtanggol ng Vietnam ang kanilang teritoryo, pero hindi naman sila ginera ng China. Mas interesado lang ang China sa pagpapayaman. Nagpapakahirap silang itayo at payabungin ang kanilang ekonomiya, tapos sisirain lang nila dahil sa gyera? It does not make any sense. Ang ginagawa ng China ngayon ay purong pananakot lamang. Kaya ang sinasabi ng mga eksperto ay dapat na ipaglaban natin ang West Philippine Sea sa pamamagitan ng paglagay ng mga Navy ships doon para ipaalala sa China na atin ang West Philippine Sea. Sa katunayan, ito ang ginagawa ng ibang mga bansa ngayon tulad ng Japan, US, UK, India at France. Nagpapadala sila ng kanilang mga Navy ships para ipaalala sa China na ang dagat na kanilang inaangkin ay EEZ ng Pilipinas kung saan may freedom of navigation at freedom of overflight ang ibang bansa. Ibig sabihin, malaya dapat na nakakapaglayag at nakakalipad ang mga barko at eroplano ng ibang bansa sa nasabing lugar. So, in summary, atin ang West Philippine Sea ayon sa batas at kasaysayan. Kaya dapat natin itong ipaglaban.
March 20th, 1995. morning rush hour in Tokyo. In crowded subways, terrorists released the deadly nerve gas sarin, killing and maiming thousands. Shizui Takahashi's husband, Kazuma, died while trying to help others.
的確な判断により多くの乗客の命を守り殉職した高橋和正、これ主人の名前ですけど、ここに書かれて高橋和正、もう一人の方の安全輸送にかけた功績をたたえ。
In recent years, terrorists began obtaining weapons of mass destruction and using them to inflict suffering on civilians anywhere, whenever they choose. The most forceful action taken thus far is United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540, which UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon says is essential to keep people safe.
We cannot afford to be complacent in the face of such a grave threat.
Resolution 1540 requires every government to adopt and enforce laws to prevent terrorists from acquiring and using weapons of mass destruction.
Over the past 10 years, we have worked for universal implementation of Resolution 1540. The world today is obviously better able to prevent WMD terrorism.
The most effective way to actually implement Resolution 1540 is to work together internationally. That means all of the governments, the member states of the United Nations, it means international civil society.
It's impossible to fully heal the wounds of the past, but forceful UN actions like Resolution 1540 may reduce fear and panic, bringing the world closer to safety and peaceful cohabitation.
As a youth, what is our role in the national security? So, Philippines fully supports Security Council Resolutions 2022-50 and 2419 and their aims of actively engaging young people to participate meaningfully in peace processes and dispute resolution. Young people have unique skills and perspectives that can inform and benefit peace negotiations. The Philippine government's commitment to include young people in the peace-building processes was demonstrated through the crafting of the National Action Plan for Youth, Peace, and Security, and the establishment of the Youth Peace Tables. Consultations with the youth, including dialogue opportunities between them and different actors and stakeholders in the peace processes, created space for young people to express the concerns and issues that are specific to their demographic. And that ends our report. Thank you for paying attention. May God bless us all.